Hey, everybody. We'll give you a couple minutes to come in here. We got a lot of registrants tonight. This is our last appeals webinar. So you're smart to get on here if you haven't been educated by us yet.
Welcome.
All the tips and tricks and the secret sauce of this part of the process.
It's about, what do we got? 3 weeks and change until May 1st, until deposits are due. So if this is new to you guys, you picked a good time to tune in because it's not too late to squeeze a couple more bucks out of these colleges. So that's what we're hoping to coach you up on tonight. So give us 1 or 2 more minutes. We got a big crowd, as you might expect, and obviously most of you are sitting on pins and needles here. All decisions are in, I think. Peggy, outside of wait lists, every school will.
I didn't look at the exact dates the Ivies did it this year. Last year was like the
they were earlier this year.
Which is good. That's better for families. Just a little housekeeping stuff. If you haven't been on our webinars before, we love questions, but please put them in the Q&A versus the chat. We might say, hey, everybody pop something in the chat and then put it in the chat. But if you've got a question, definitely put it in the Q&A. And there's a little box you can mark if you want to be anonymous. So that's a good thing about the Q&A. And we will be sending out the slides and a recording tomorrow. So if you have to leave early or you get interrupted, don't worry about it. And you don't have to take massive notes because we're sending you the deck. So
don't leave early, because for those of you that have tuned in with us before, we like to take care of our folks that tune in live. So we'll have a special giveaway for those that are on at the end with us. So sit tight with that. And again, for those of you that have been with us before, we keep our word there. So hold on to the end so you can learn more there. And if you wouldn't mind, I know Peggy just said put in the Q&A, but in the chat, if you would just tell us what schools are on the radar for you guys, who we getting ready to go to war with, so to speak. Let us know what colleges you guys are thinking about, because we might be able to talk about a few of them specifically and our experience in terms of appealing for more money, for better, for worse here. There's some great insight. We're running the whole gamut in terms of what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, are there any underclassmen, any overachievers here from the class 2024-25 that want to learn about this ahead of time? If you are, I know just about all you class 2023. But if there's any underclassmen, go ahead and let us know. All right. You seeing all these schools, Peggy?
Yeah, I'm watching them. Yep.
The whole gamut. And we have experience with every single one of these. Cool. And we get the whole country covered, really. So, I appreciate you sharing. So,
public, private, small, big, we got them all.
Exactly. Oh. All right, Peggy, let's do this thing if you want to kick us off.
All right. Let me share my screen here. So for those of you that don't know us, we'll do quick intros and gotta move the Q&A out of my way here. And we are College Aid Pro. So you can see our mission right up here: to end the student loan crisis by empowering families to shop smarter for college. And what that really means is educating you guys so that you're informed consumers. And this is part of the process. You're not at the end. Then we're going to talk about how do you pay the bill. That's the next piece, but you're getting there. You're almost to the end. But the appeals part, just like each piece in this journey, there's a right way to do it. And there's some ins and outs for you to know about. And so that's what we're going to teach you tonight, that part of the process. So there we are. Oh, let's do a quick intro. So I'm Peg Keough, as the slide says. I'm the Director of Education here at CAP. Basically, my background is in the financial industry. And when my kids, I have twins, a boy and a girl, when they hit high school, I did a deep dive into all this stuff around not saving for college, but how does it all work? And as we all know on this webinar, it's pretty complicated and all the colleges are different. And I just had an aha moment that I wanted to focus on that because I had always been a planner, financial planner. And then I just focused on the college piece, and fortunately met the guys at CAP. I started my own business and had met them, beta tested their software with them. And we had always kept chatting. professionally, and we'd always talked about partnering. And then in 2021, it made sense for CAP and for me to join CAP. And so that's what I did. My best credential, though, is that I've been through this, honestly. So I know how you feel. I've been a parent ×2 at the same time. And I bet you anything, we have some parents with multiples on here. I say I feel your pain, but it doesn't have to be painful. It's stressful, yeah, but it doesn't have to be painful. So hopefully we'll take away a little bit of that stress tonight. All right, Bud, you want to introduce yourself?
I would like to think we've evolved past just a professional relationship. You did sleep at my house last night, Peggy.
Okay. I was in Boston this morning getting in an Uber.
God bless Peggy, right?
In
Boston this morning, all the way out in Seattle right now. So
I hurried back just so I could be on this webinar with you guys.
Come a long ways. And yes, and Peggy is otherwise known as the fairy godmother of financial aid, as you guys will find out over the next hour here if you haven't already. But my background is just, this is all I've done my entire life, my entire career, right? My entire professional career has just been in this niche world of figuring out how to help families navigate this process in the best way possible. And it is stressful and it's overwhelming, especially right now at the finish line. I think I've had a few conversations today with parents, a couple tears involved. And I always say, I get it, right? It's your kids and it's your money. It's hugely provocative things here. And I think the hardest part for parents right now is you don't want to be in a position to have to tell your kid, we can't send you to the school that you've earned the right to attend. You did your job. And now we feel like we're letting you down as parents. And that stinks, right? To even have to have that conversation in any capacity whatsoever. We hope you're not having those. And at a minimum, we hope that you leave here tonight, at least being fully armed with the information where you can give it your best shot to make all these schools within range. And we'll talk about which schools are more likely to budge versus not, and what can we expect from an expectation standpoint. But at the very least, you're going to be able to leave here tonight and be able to look yourself in the mirror and tell your kids like, hey, we gave it hell. We did everything we could to squeeze as much juice as possible out of the schools that we're thinking about. And that's all you can do at the end of the day, right? And then we'll go try to make a good decision from here. But we love this stuff. This is my favorite part of the process, going back to these schools, playing this game. Let's not kid ourselves. This is the game, and we play it pretty well. I guess that's it for me. Peggy, we can take it away here.
All right. Everybody should have gotten an email this morning encouraging you to set up a free MyCap account. If you did, great. Hopefully you have that open on a computer next to you so that when we talk about your sample family and Matt shows you some stuff you can do around financial aid award letters tonight, you can actually be looking at that for your specific situation. If you haven't yet, don't worry about it. The link is right there. Matt's going to pop it in the chat. We strongly encourage you to get that set up, upload your award letters. We actually have a scholarship. I always forget the deadline. Is it the 7th?
It's April 7th.
Yeah. So we have $1,000 scholarship, and each award you upload, there's good reasons for you to upload your award, not just the scholarship. That's just the icing on the cake. But every award that you upload is you've got another ticket in the bucket or whatever you call it, another chance to win, basically. I guess that's
another raffle ticket.
It's a better way to say it. Yeah. So definitely do that. Okay. So let's dive in here. Just a little clarifying information. And this creates a lot of confusion. And we totally get it because it's all confusing. Your child gets into college and the Office of Admission sends a letter and says, congratulations, you got in, and might say right on there, you got a prestige scholarship for whatever, $100,000, which means $25,000 a year. That's what number 2 is. That's a merit scholarship, but that's not your financial aid award letter. You should all have financial aid award letters at this point. These colleges should have had these out to you. So they come from the Office of Financial Aid, and they are going to have these 4 things potentially on them. Maybe not work study, depending on your family, and maybe not grants. So grants are the need-based free money, and they usually label it as a grant. Some colleges call them scholarships. And if you're not sure if it's need-based or merit, which is for grades and test scores not based on need, then you want to get clarification from the college. The number one and number two are what you're hopefully getting a lot of, because that's the free stuff you don't have to repay. You might have work study on there. If you have need-based aid eligibility, it might say work study, and then you'll almost always see direct federal student loans. If you see loans on there, then you know it's your financial aid award letter. That's what you're going to want to upload, that Matt's going to talk about a little bit later. So those are the 4 parts, and there's different loans. We're going to get into the loans and how they all work in the next piece, the next part of this journey, and that's the how to pay that I was talking about earlier. But those are the pieces, and that's the difference between a financial aid award letter and just your offer of admission with merit. And it might be something that your child has to find in their financial part of their student portal. They might not have sent it out. Okay, so let's look at a few of these so you kind of have a frame of reference. So let's look at the different pieces here that I just talked about. So this college has done a good job, or university has done a good job of breaking out the cost of attendance. That's the full cost for a year. So a little shy of 60,000. Then they come down here and they say, this is the student part, and this is your total EFC. No, that's your, and then the parent part, this is the total contributions that they think you can make. You might say, oh my gosh, I can't afford that, but it is what it is at this point, unless you're going to appeal, and there's reasons for that. And we'll talk about that. So this family has financial need of about 23,000. So let's see how the school comes in and meets that need. They throw in a really big Parent Plus loan. So that's a federal loan. It's a loan that one of the parents takes out. And then they also said, hey, you can have a subsidized federal loan and an unsubsidized federal loan. And then they say, your total award package is $56,374, when in fact, it's all loans. So those grants and scholarships and even work study, not on here, right? So that's an example of one award. You have to be aware of this, because your remaining cost, they're telling you, is 0, but really your remaining cost is the whole cost for this award. So let's look at DU, University of Denver. So they, again, break out nicely into direct and indirect costs, the cost of attendance. And I like that, because indirect costs, you've got some wiggle room with transportation expenses, especially. So they break that out nicely. Then they say, all right, here's all the free money. So there's a merit scholarship, and then there's also a need-based grant. You, like I said earlier, you want to make sure you know what is merit and what is need, because merit is almost always offered for all 4 years, whereas need will change if your financial situation changes. If you get a big raise, you're going to lose some need-based aid. Then they also give subsidized and unsubsidized, those direct federal loans. Then they come down here and they say, here's your cost without loans, and here's your cost with loans. So pretty good award letter from DU. So let's look at Occidental in California. The main thing I want to point out here, because we do see this, and I just saw one for $500 the other day on an award, is Occidental is offering their own loan. And these are really important to look at the terms of the loan, because when I look at them, they're usually pretty good. So that could be a good loan to grab if loans are part of your strategy. And then all the other pieces that we've already talked about, but you see here down in the bottom, this Parent Plus loan rears its ugly head again, because the colleges can award a Parent Plus loan for the cost of attendance minus any aid they give. So literally, if they give 0 aid and they cost $70,000, they can say, here's your $70,000 Parent Plus loan. They're always going to offer the direct student loan, so that'll come off first. So you got to be really careful, because these are loans and they're higher interest rate loans, but we'll talk about that in the next piece. So the next thing here is, how do you know if you received a fair award? And so I'm going to turn it over to you now, Matt, to talk about that. And I'm going to give
about time, Peggy. It's about time. So to go back to that first slide, or one of the first slides that Peg showed, if you haven't set up your MyCap account already, now's the time to do it, right? Because the most important thing that you can do at this stage, once you've got your acceptance and got your award, is try to have a third party sanity check this thing for you, right? And that's us, right? And let our firm do the work. And we're really good specifically at this part of it, right? We have 3 full-time data scientists, and especially we are working them hard this time of year to see how good we are doing our projections versus what's actually coming in, and trying to figure out if we feel like an award is off base, if we got less money than we expected, why? And now let's go back to that college and be strategic about trying to get more money. You'll notice a couple things at the top, right? Your EFCs, and that's what is the foundation for allowing us to project how much these schools are going to cost you. So this is before we know you've been accepted and what the actual award is. We're predicting how much are these schools going to cost you, right? What are you going to get in discounts, need-based financial aid, scholarships, or some combination thereof. So that's our barometer, right, for this stage of the process when you've actually got that award. We want to see how did we do. And what you can do, and Peg just gave a whole bunch of examples, and you guys are living it right now. These offers are confusing, and it's really hard to determine what's a loan, what's work study, what do I have to pay back, what's going to be there for all 4 years versus what could change each year. But what we want you to do is go to this translate and compare section. Okay. And again, if you haven't created your account, just do it right now. And you're going to upload all your offers, right? So if I say, hey, I got an offer from Boston University. Oh, sorry, guys, I got booted. Sometimes it's a little bit wonky when I'm sharing my screen here, so bear with me. But once we go down to that translate and compare section, as you can see, I've uploaded a lot of offers here, but I'm going to put in Boston University. And then I'm just going to select that file from my wherever it lives on my computer, and we'll help you, but it's got to be a PDF or it's got to be a JPEG. It's got to be below a certain size, the file.
It's 5 megs though. It's 5 megs. That's big for a PDF.
You're fancy, Peg. Look at you.
I'm just a tech guru. What could I tell you?
Tech guru, Seattle, Boston. Yeah, so bear with me. Okay, so there we go. And now what we've accomplished here is allowing you to just compare apples to apples, right? This is the sticker price of the school or cost of attendance. This is what they're giving you in need-based financial aid. So this is all tied to your income. So this could change from year to year. If your income goes up, this could go down. If your income goes down, this could go up, right? Versus a merit-based scholarship, which wasn't relevant for this particular offer, we can feel really good. That's going to be flatlined for all 4 years. And then we have the federal direct student loans. And ultimately, what's most important, what's our remaining out-of-pocket cost, right? And this is what we want to do. We want to compare apples to apples and have a clear understanding of what all of these schools are actually going to cost me. One thing I skipped over here, in order for this part of the platform to work effectively, both that part and more importantly, what I'm going to show you in a second, the evaluation part, you have to have all of your profile filled in, right? And we'll tell you if it's not, it'll say, this is 100% complete. But if it wasn't, it would say right next to here in the top, it would say 85% complete, 91% complete, whatever it happens to be. But in order for us to give you the most accurate output, we need those inputs from all of you. And this is what's really exciting here is this last part of the process, the last part of this feature.
Let me just interrupt you. Sorry, Matt. And
Yeah.
you also need to have the school up on, you need to have added it under shop for schools.
Yes.
Or else you're going to, because somebody wrote in. So those 2 things you've got to have done.
Thank you for saying that. I just was going to catch myself too, right? So it's got to be in this section, the schools, you got to have your profile 100% complete, right? So this is, and it makes sense, right, guys? We need to know all the details of your situation. Then we need to project what we think you should get at that school here. That's why the school's got to be in this section. And then you're going to upload your award here. And now we're going to tell you, how did you do? Right. And this is what's, I think, one of the most robust parts of our platform is that we're going to give you the likelihood. How likely is it that we can go back to BU or wherever and get a couple more bucks? And we're going to tell you here, for better or for worse. And if we want to dig in terms of the why, we're going to get some context, right? In this case, we were projecting that based on how BU typically awards financial aid and scholarships, you should have got $15,000 more based on your family situation, based on your financials, situation based on the student's credentials, right? So that's one thing we're flagging here is the amount awarded. The next thing is the institution's methodology. This is basically their business model. Okay. So for example, I live in Beverly, Mass, right? It's a little city just north of Boston. We got a really nice little college in our town here called Endicott College. They're a private college that uses the federal methodology. Okay. And just by nature, private colleges that use the federal methodology, usually there's what we call, just in layman's terms, usually there's wiggle room. Okay. That's just the deal. So we will flag certain colleges that we know typically if you appeal, there's some wiggle room. Right. And then lastly, again, in this case, there's some family considerations. This particular family is a 2-household family, right? The parents are divorced here. So just by the nature of that dynamic, we know there's an additional likelihood of having a successful appeal. So again, we just want to take some of the guesswork out of it for you, right? And make sure that we are flagging specifically schools that are going to be a great opportunity or where you definitely should be appealing. And even, listen, there's going to be cases where we're saying, and sorry, just to give you our kind of credentials here, where we're saying, hey, there's a low likelihood of an appeal, right? If I can zoom in, some of them are going to be like, it doesn't mean don't try it, but we're just setting some expectations to say, hey, we're betting against having a successful outcome here. Doesn't mean don't do it. And Peg and I will elaborate on that. But again, we're just trying to set some expectations in terms of our likelihood of success.
All right, let me hop back into the slides here. Okay, so now you know how you can see, how do we know if we got a fair award? So let's talk in general, should you always appeal? And somebody who I actually know personally that I met with a bunch of times, she put a great comment in the chat. So if everybody didn't see it, LSU had a financial, I forget exactly what she called it, but they did like a financial aid session. And she basically said in her chat comment, don't bother to appeal. So that falls under exactly what we were going to share, bad candidates for appeal.
Sorry, but Peg, what was that school? Did you say?
LSU.
Oh, LSU. Oh, yeah. Unless you're playing for Coach Kelly. Yeah.
Let's not talk about Coach Kelly right now. In general, state and public colleges, you're not going to have a lot of success appealing unless what you submitted on the form is not your current reality and with your financials. And if you're an in-state kid, if you're a Louisiana kid, then that might help you. If you're an out-of-state kid, unless your need gets pretty severe, you're probably not going to get anything. They might throw you a couple $1,000, $5,000, but they're not going to meet need. So just realize that. So I don't know if anybody put in, if we have any class of 24s on here, but just keep that in mind when you're building a college list. It's hard to appeal to the state and public schools unless you have something funky on your tax return. Maybe you did a Roth conversion, so your income was blown up and it's not really your income. That kind of stuff, sure, you can reach out to them. In general, they're not as good at meeting need as the private schools. It's for out-of-state kids. So that's the bad candidates. And thanks, Farine, for sharing that with the group. That's great. And that's exactly what we were going to share with you. But now you're hearing it in reality. What are the good candidates for appeal? So if the state schools aren't so good, stands to reason that private schools are going to be better. And that is true. The other thing, just like I said with the state schools, if your current reality or your 2022 financial reality was worse than what you were required to submit on the forms for 2021, because all of you reported on 2021, that's definitely a trigger to think about appealing. And it could be a COVID impact still. It could be anything. It could be a layoff, whatever it is. You don't want to be shy. You want to let the college know, because if you don't have the ability to pay that they think you do, that could really help. You could really increase a package or get money when maybe you're not now. Also, like I said before, if there was anything on your tax return that you took a retirement distribution, you had a big capital gain that you had to pay taxes on, anything like that, you want to reach out to the college because it's not real income. If you are a 2-family household and you can be just separated, you don't have to, if you're two households living in 2 places, you don't have to be officially divorced. That's another time to think about appealing. There's nuances with certain schools around that where you want to do a little bit of a deep dive, depending on the methodology that they're using to calculate the EFC. And that's the next bullet down, IM versus FM. So that's the federal methodology versus the institutional methodology. So if your child applied to schools that required the CSS profile, and you would remember, because I'm sure it was a fun weekend or however long it took you to fill it out, I say in jest, that's the institutional methodology. And they're almost all private schools that use that. There's only a handful of public. So those methodologies are different. And Matt already said earlier when he was in the software that the federal methodology schools that are private, there's typically wiggle room in there. And some schools, and Matt will mention this, some schools will under award. And I've helped families. It's like, I can see they're under awarding based on the average amount. And when you call them on it, sometimes they pony up some money. If you are a business owner, that's another thing, because certain schools look at your business, they look at your tax return, they throw out expenses that the IRS is okay with you deducting, but they maybe say, that's not really an expense. And if you understand that and get in the weeds, you can have a conversation with the college and appeal. You can appeal that and say, hey, those are legit expenses. Because the minute they take away expenses, your income goes up. And parental income is the biggest driver in calculating the EFC. And then last but not least, and parents, this is always surprising to a lot of parents, if you have competing schools, you can definitely use merit awards to say, hey, you want to do it the right way, but you were generous. We can't wait to come. We appreciate the offer and then $15,000 merit award, but XYZ school gave us 20. Can you match it or whatever your ask is? And Matt's going to go into detail on that in a few minutes, kind of the best way to do it. But it's totally fine to do that. And never mind, I won't steal his thunder and talk. I'll let him share it later. You can definitely do that. These colleges are not going to say, oh, we're mad at you. You appealed. Now you can't come here. They're absolutely not going to do that. The worst thing they're going to say is, no, we can't give you any more money. That's the worst thing that can happen out of this situation. So as I said earlier, and I put it in the chat as well, we're sending you all these slides tomorrow. So this is a great slide for you to review. I'm not going to go over each one of these. Matt said it at the beginning, though. I do want to let you know that the deadline at almost all schools is May 1 to say, yes, I'm coming. That doesn't mean somebody wrote in and said, oh, can you apply to school still? Yeah, there are some schools you can definitely still apply to, but if you want to hold your seat, you've got till May 1. So you definitely want to get appeals in ASAP because you want the college to get back to you before May 1. So you really know your reality. A few more good guideposts for you. I'm going to focus on the first one and the last one. Early decision is passed. Somebody wrote in a question about the FAFSA not going live until December, and how does that affect early decision? And I said, that's a great question. We're going to see what happens with the timeline. But and I'll say this, even if we don't have any 24 parents, because you guys might have younger kids, if you apply early decision, that's fine. It's good for admission because some schools literally fill a third to half of their class with early decision and early action kids. So it's a great play from an admission standpoint, but you do lose some leverage because you're signing a contract saying, hey, I'm going to come. So you should have your ducks in a row and make sure you know you can afford it before you apply ED or let your child apply ED. And then the last one here.
Peggy, sorry, let me jump in here because it's somewhat relevant to this type of decision that families need to make, right? Because we've seen, I think, especially in this year, in the last couple of years, more families have success in pushing back on the early decision offer by saying, hey, we can't commit unless we get more money, essentially, because you're allowed to break the contract. If that's one of the reasons you can break the contract, right? To Peggy's point, you want to have an idea before you commit to that, right? And sign on that dotted line, but it is a real piece of leverage that you have there. Now, that's related to a bunch of questions that we're getting right now. I've now seen, and if we're talking about from when we first started, there's been several of these, which are saying, can we put more than one deposit in by May 1st? And Peg, I'm going to be curious to get your take on this too. And I get a feeling we don't see it completely eye to eye. So we'll just go off the cuff here. But listen, colleges don't want you to do this. They don't. And that's why they say you can only put down one deposit at a college. And generally speaking, that's how we coach it too, right? You don't want to be disingenuous by putting down multiple deposits and just seeing what happens. That said, there are certain cases where I will recommend to a specific subset of families, I guess, to say it makes sense for you. You're still waiting on an appeal, or you truly don't know, right? This is a massive decision. This is a huge investment, and you're just not ready you don't know what it is by May 1st. And if you put down more than one deposit, well, that buys you another couple of months. And it's going to be a bad look at the college that you don't attend, right? And you're going to lose. You have to expect to lose. Sometimes you can get it back, but you're going to expect to lose a couple $100. But from where I sit, I'm like, you have to look out for yourself and your family more than you do these colleges, right? Now, and again, I'm not saying that I make a blanket recommendation, but for certain families, I recommend it. I say, listen, you're not ready. Go ahead and buy yourself some time, and it's going to be worth that couple $100 extra to buy yourself a few more months. So again, this is not something that I would say is like a blanket recommendation, but if you're that exception type of family that I'm describing here, in my mind, it's okay. And if you were talking to me one-on-one, or if you were a client, I would say it's okay. And you got to watch out for yourself more than worry about what the college thinks type of deal. So Peg, I'm curious to hear how you answer that question.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much with you. Like sometimes these colleges will say, go ahead and appeal, but I won't tell you by May 1. I just think that they're being bad actors at that point. That's just not okay. And so you got to keep your options open. I wouldn't advocate for doing it to multiple schools, right? But if you're really stuck, this is a big decision. And if you don't have all the data to make the decision, then yeah, I agree. There's certain people where that does make sense for, but just realize that you could lose the money. And guys, please put your questions in the Q&A, not in the chat, because I see there's 10 things in the chat now.
We're getting great questions, but you got to put them in the Q&A, please, guys.
Yeah,
to make
please
sure.
paste them over. Yeah, so that's my take on that. So back to this last bullet here, and we'll talk about this, but you got to make sure that you're applying to the right department. So as I said earlier, if you're applying to increase merit aid, appealing, sorry, that's going to be the Office of Admissions, because they're the ones that give out the merit aid. If it's need-based, then you're going to appeal to financial aid. So just make sure you're appealing to the right place, because if you don't, then they're going to send you over there. And you want to find out what their process is, because they all, just like May 1st is probably the only thing that's pretty uniform across schools, that deadline. Everything else is different from school to school. And then you guys can review the other bullets at your leisure. All right, I will turn this back to you, Matt.
And just to layer on, we actually got that question, Peg, just as you were explaining it. Should it be admission? Should it be financial aid? And sometimes it's both, right? It's not rare that we recommend that, hey, guys, let's do both. Let's apply for more merit-based scholarships and have the student lead the charge, and the parent is just going to be there in the background. And then let's also apply for need-based financial aid led by the parents. And again, the student is going to be providing color commentary again in the background. So that's hopefully that answers that question, or kind of series of questions we got along those lines. So it's a simple slide in a lot of ways, right? But this is, I think, maybe one of the most important parts of the presentation that we make tonight and anytime we talk about appeals, because this is really the X's and O's of how you should actually be executing this part of the process. And this slide has evolved over the years, but it's probably about 15 years old. And we're really lucky because Peg and myself and the rest of the folks on our team have been doing this for many years. But now in recent years, we've got financial aid counselors as a part of our team, as a part of College Aid Pro. Ryan Callahan's a director of financial aid at Harvard Medical, previously at MIT and BC undergrad. Josh DeMeo is a director of financial aid at MIT Sloan School of Management, previously at BC. We have the director of financial aid at Denison University, director of scholarships at University of Oklahoma.
She's not at Denison anymore. She just left that job. Now she's at Columbus School of Design. But
sorry, mom. I missed one.
just want to be clear.
But the point is, the takeaway is I think it's really enhanced our collective level of how we understand the intricacies of this process, to be able to tap into what goes on that side of the fence. How do these conversations play out with the appeals committee? Truly, what are the do's and don'ts, right? And number one, you guys can have the opportunity to meet with any of these folks I just mentioned, in addition to Peg and myself and anybody else on our team. But for those of you that are the complete DIYers, just pay attention to what we're about to share here, because Ryan's only formally been a part of our team for, I don't know, I guess it's been a couple of years now, but he's been a consultant of sorts for quite some time. And he's one of the architects of this slide. And so I want to talk through each of these points. The first one, and might seem very painfully obvious, bring some color and background to your story, but to elaborate on that, Ryan always talks about the fact, and Peg, we always make fun of Ryan because he's the most serious dude on planet Earth. I don't know, Peg, did you see that today? I guess somebody canceled the meeting with him last minute and he wasn't happy.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
I was like,
I know. Actually, I did, because they had some work emergency. Yeah,
exactly. I'm like, it sounds like Ryan. So I'm like, and again, I can say that because he's a friend, and he can take it. But he's a kind of a perfect example, and I think a good representation of some of these financial aid counselors where, listen, they're employed by these institutions. It's their job to get you into the school, give you enough money to get you to commit, but also enough where they're still making their margins. And they're just crunching numbers. It's very black and white, formula driven. And so Ryan always talks about the fact, like, where my job gets really hard is when I get that phone call, I get that email to say, hey, the best day of our lives was when our kid got accepted into their top choice. The worst day was 2 weeks later when we got the offer. And we had to think about, and this is a conversation I had today, and there was a poor woman actually crying. Like, I might have to tell my kid I can't send them to the school that they've earned the right to attend. They've done their job. And I feel as a parent, I've let them down. And what is worse than that? That's the tone that we want to strike, right? We want to have Ryan and ex-financial aid counselor feel like, damn, I want to figure out a way to make this happen for this family. And we want to spoon feed them. We talk about this all the time. Spoon feed these people. We make their jobs easier so that Ryan can go to his appeals committee and say, listen, I talked to this family. They said they did their homework. They're still going to be overextending themselves. But if we can come up with another $7,000, ask for a specific amount, they're going to commit. They're going to sign on the dotted line, right? Peg talked about this a bunch earlier, and it's 100% true. And then she talked about the fact that, especially if there's any underclassmen on here, as we're building our list of colleges, we always want competing events. So we can say, so I went to Stonehill College, right? For those of you not from the Northeast, you probably never heard of it. Now it's a Division I powerhouse, football factory, Peggy.
As we all know,
I'm a Division I football player, but we had our rivals athletically, but it usually turns out that way academically too, right? So Bentley University is another college here in the Northeast, right? Both great little schools, right? But they're competitors, right? Not just medically, but as institutions. So we can go back to Stonehill and say, here's what I got from Bentley. And we can go back to Bentley and say, here's what I got from Stonehill. And that applies everywhere across the board, right? Now, Peggy mentioned the fact that, and we picked on LSU specifically, but most state flagship universities, unless you're playing for Coach Franklin, Penn State doesn't care that you got an offer from Ohio State or from UPitt or from UMass Amherst or whatever.
Or a private school, they just don't care.
They don't care. So again, for the big state flagship universities, I don't want to say it never happens. And we've seen University of Iowa specifically this year has been absolutely bending. And if you're out of state, especially, you have more odds because these schools are still getting their margins. Even if you get a discount out of state, you're still paying out of state dollars. But again, in terms of setting expectations, the state schools, unless we have some really robust ammunition, usually it is what it is, right? This kind of fourth bucket here, right? This is like a PhD level of appealing, okay? And as you guys have experienced to date, a lot of these private colleges, in addition to your FAFSA and your CS profile, they wanted you to submit your federal tax returns and your W-2s and this kind of laundry list of supporting documentation. It wasn't to verify what you put on your FAFSA and CS profile. For the most part, they want this information so they can look at your deductions, right? And Ryan loves telling us this. I go through these deductions and I just say to myself, oh, you own another home and you wrote off depreciation. I'm not counting that. Oh, you're self-employed and you wrote off your software because you're a financial advisor. I'm not counting that. And they just make their own decisions about your deductions, unbeknownst to you. Right. So you want to call, and again, this is more picking on private colleges, but you want to make the specific ask, hey, did you not count any of the deductions that the IRS found completely legitimate? And the hope is, and the expectation is that they're going to answer that truthfully and say, yes, there were some deductions that you had on your taxes that we didn't allow. And that gave you less financial aid because it jacked up your income, right? If you can challenge them on that, you have such an incredibly high likelihood of a successful appeal, because unless you work with us or you've seen one of our presentations, nobody knows about this. And the more sophisticated your appeal, the better. Colleges do not like to be called on this. And I'll tell you another huge one. This year, more than ever, these private colleges are taking advantage of homeowners, right? Because many of you probably don't know this, but if you own your home, most private colleges, I'm just going to rattle off some schools in here that look at home equity as fair game. Oberlin, Case Western, let's see, WashU, George Washington, Syracuse, big time, Bentley, Denver,
USC, Southern
Brown,
California, even though they say they don't for some families, but I think they do for most.
Northeastern, Emory. So we can Tulane and on Fordham, High Point. So you get BU, you get the point. If you're a homeowner, they are counting that equity against you. And we have been more successful than ever this year in calling them on that to basically say, excuse me, like Peggy, I haven't sworn in a while. Have I? Can I say it's bullshit?
Okay, you just did. So I guess the cat's out of the bag.
It's bullshit. Okay. It's bullshit that they count home equity against you. Okay. But they do. And when you can call them on this in the right way, we have seen massive wins in getting more money out of these colleges that do it. And and again, we just rattled off a bunch on here that's an important part. Bentley, Providence, Northeastern, UVA, right? Of Union.
And the thing with home equity is a couple of years ago, I had clients that I was getting them to refi to a lower interest rate, pull some money out. So back then when interest rates were lower, it was a different ballgame and it was actually a win for them. It was a good financial planning thing to do. And it was a win for college. But now home equity lines of credit, the interest rates the Fed has not said they're done raising interest rates. They're much higher than they were several years ago. So the colleges are saying, hey, you take on interest rate risk so you can pay us. So that's where you really want to think about it. I know it's hard to take the emotion out of this, but lay all these awards on a table, on your dining room table, and really think about, play them off each other and think about, do we really want to do this? Remember 2005, you don't want to leverage your house too much. There's a lot of things to think about in this process, but yeah, taking out HELOCs and everything's a different story now.
Yes, but the big takeaway here as it pertains to this is we want to have a very good understanding of, are they giving us less money because we're homeowners and holding that against us? And how do we go back the right way to try to push back on that. Last two ones, again, these are a lot more straightforward. Be persistent, right? And again, I keep forgetting to update this slide. Be persistent, but be kind, right? Like Ryan, our guys, our financial aid folks always remind us that as they're going through this appeal process, and don't use the word negotiate, as you're going through this appeal process, they're also evaluating, is this a family that I want to have a relationship with for the next 4 years? Because Ryan tells stories all the time where he's like, I do not want to deal with that parent for the next 4 years. So I'm just going to say, no, please go somewhere else. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. And then the last one, when we talk about student leading the charge, especially from an admissions standpoint, we want the student to have a voice. And it's still great to have a supporting voice if we're talking about need-based financial aid. But yeah, absolutely. Specifically, when we're talking about asking for more merit money, we want the student to be the loudest voice in the room here. Go ahead, Peggy. And I appreciate all the great questions too. You guys are firing away here. Rapid fire is what we like.
Yeah, it makes it fun for us. Okay, so let me show you a couple awards, one award and an appeal that one of our experts did. Full disclosure, this is not our average award amount, but it just sends the point home that, you know, there are definite grounds for appeal. And this one happened to be a home equity one. So this is Occidental. They got a merit scholarship and a need-based grant. So this family has over 33,000 of need because there's work study and other stuff as well. So that's 34,000 of the free stuff, the gift aid. So after the appeal, based on the home equity, because it's value of the home, there's a lot of pieces of this that Matt and I could talk about for 15 minutes, the whole strategy just around this. They, of course, kept their merit award because they were appealing for on the home equity, which is the need-based side. So they were going to the Office of Admissions. But look at that grant. That grant jumped from 21,000 to 49,500, right? Huge increase. So went from this amount of gift aid to this. Again, Matt and I are not here to tell you, oh, this is the average that happens with our experts. It absolutely isn't. I think our average is about 10,000 or 11,000 this year, but that's even inflated because we've had a few really big ones. So full disclosure, we're not used car salesmen trying to do this hard sell on telling you crazy stuff that isn't true, because that's just not how we operate. But if there are good grounds for appeal, and that's what we're trying to show you tonight, and I'm trying to answer, people are asking me questions. If there's grounds for appeal, then you can be successful. If it's not a good appeal, we could probably tell you right off the get-go, don't do it. And that's what our software does sometimes as well. So just keep that in mind. Matt and I have been doing this for a while, like you said, and you can have some success. Not at LSU, as our parent nicely shared with the group, and so do we.
But the numbers are the numbers, Peg. The numbers are the numbers. We're almost $11,000 on average. Let's not bury the lead here.
Right, but yeah,
I'm with you now.
Fully transparent.
100%. We don't like this.
But hey, $2,000, that could be $8,000 in your pocket, right? So even $1,000, that's $4,000 in your pocket if it's merit aid. So that's a lot of money in my book.
Times 4 years, tax-free, straight
Yep.
cash on me.
Yep.
Okay, great. So let's talk about next steps, guys, and you'll get this deck here, and Peggy's teasing here, but let me share if I could, Peggy.
Sure.
So here's what I'm recommending, guys. This is the firm recommendation, right? And I see a few familiar faces, so you're going to hear me say what I've said before, but this is one where I say, don't overthink this, guys. This is a massive investment. There's a lot at stake. Maximize your odds of getting as much money as possible from these colleges, right? And what I'm recommending specifically, if you already have a MyCap account, go ahead and, as a matter of fact, I should show you where that happens. If you already have your MyCap account set up, I'll show you where to go. Give me just a second. But assuming you're on the free version of the account, guys, just go to the top right and it'll either say upgrade if you're on the free version, or talk to an expert. Book a time to go over your appeal with one of us, right? At this time of year, I would recommend choosing next available. because you want to get these appeals in as quickly as possible, given where we are May 1st. I know, speaking for myself, I'm pretty well booked out. I don't even know if I have any availability the rest of this month. Peg's probably.
I don't think I do, but that we have, like we've talked about, we have great experts that have been doing this. They're doing it now. They're in financial aid offices, or they've been doing it for a decade plus. We've got good people on our team.
Can't go wrong, right? And we collaborate all the time, right? We collaborate. We'll say, hey, here's the case I just got. What am I missing? What templates have worked? That's something that we do, is we want to make sure that we look at your FAFSA, your CS profile. Did you make a mistake here? I do that 3 times today. I saw a mistake people made on their CS profile. They put, or their FAFSA, they put the 529 in the student's name. They had a joint account, but they include it as the student's money, not the parents'. They overvalued their home, right? Any number of things that we can immediately say, this can get us a couple more bucks right now, or this is a school that you should be leveraging, right? Or this is how you should emphasize it. And again, the home equity one, there's some really, again, sophisticated, for lack of a better word, language that you want to use when challenging home equity. And again, it varies a little bit based on the institution and based on your particular situation, but we can nail that, right? Tonight, and this is tonight only, guys, tonight only. Don't think about it, book it tonight. Use either upgrade or create your account and choose the valedictorian. Use the last call 20, because this is our last appeals presentation for the class 2023. Use coupon code last call 20, and you're going to get access to everything for a year plus an hour with one of our experts for $239. And again, our average, Peg said, and she's right, that typically we hope to get another $3,000 to $5,000 a year. But our average this year is about $11,000, right? So for $239, that's the upside is very significant, right? And you can use this hour however you want. A lot of times it'll end up being, and this happened for me twice today, we got the appeal all wrapped up, and then we talked about, hey, I'm still going to need to borrow. What loans should I be thinking about? Even if this appeal goes successful, or I have a 529, should I use it all in the first year? Should we spread it out over 4 years? Or I'm not eligible for need-based financial aid. I got some savings here, but what should I be thinking about from a tax standpoint, right? There's a lot of ways we can get cute there. So you're going to get money out of your hour. And if you don't get value out of the hour, I'm not guaranteeing the appeal is going to be successful, because we never can. If you don't get value out of the hour, ask for your money back. We'll give a full refund. This is being recorded. You're going to get the recording. So you can cite me specifically, 8:57 Eastern time on, what are we at? April 4th? April 5th?
April 5th.
April 5th. There you go. Matt Carpenter said that I got zero value out of my hour and the platform. I want my money back, and I'm willing to put myself out there. But you got to book it tonight, right? For those that couldn't make it live, they'll get some type of discount tomorrow for your peers that couldn't make it or that had to duck out early, but it's not going to be this. And also, again, we have limited bandwidth. So book it tonight. Even if you don't book your meeting tonight, at least take advantage of this deal. And then you can go look at your schedule tomorrow and book a more convenient time tomorrow. But don't overthink this one. Do not overthink it. You're going to get your $239 worth in this meeting between the appeal and any other questions you might have. And Peggy, if you haven't already, just pop this link into the chat, please.
Of the page. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Please.
And I put the coupon code in there too. So
yeah, we got awesome free resources too. So if you're not engaged in some of these already, please. And for underclassmen, if you haven't started this process yet, you would consider these kind of wake me up when it's over, really comprehensive packages. But for class 2023, you missed the boat on this one. If you have younger kids, absolutely go take a look at those in terms of what that service offering and price points look like. But for this one, if nothing else, you're going to be able to sleep at night going, you know what, I gave it hell. We did everything we could to maximize our odds of having to squeeze in as much juice as possible out of these schools. And again, we're unique in terms of what we can offer. Like, we get to just text the director of financial aid at Harvard and MIT and formerly of Denison, Peggy, if that makes you happy.
formerly of Denison. She just left,
And
but she's great.
she is. So, and each other, right? Like, we've worked at every single school that went in the chat. We've done this many times over with them every single year. So we get it. So maximize your odds and take advantage, and you're not gonna regret it. And if you do, call me on it, get your money back, and we'll send you on your way.
Yeah, and somebody put in, and I said this earlier, but you probably just didn't catch it. And I will say, knock on wood, I've never seen a school, and Matt probably hasn't either, but correct me, that is revoked admission because of an appeal. Okay, they just don't do that, right? They just say no. They just say no, we can't do it.
It's a good point. I'm glad somebody asked it, because we get that all the time, and I appreciate it. I laugh at it because we're so jaded knowing how I think this is a rigged game, and colleges have the upper hand, right? So I'm dismissive sometimes, but in all seriousness, your worst case scenario is these colleges go, guys, we did the best we could, take it or leave it. That's it, and you're out some sweat equity, and that's it, right? That's the risk. So in terms of risk versus reward, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a no-brainer, even if you go do it on your own. At a minimum, do it on your own if you want to maximize your odds. Hook up with one of us, right, to do it with you. But everybody on here, they're not going to say you guys are a pain in the ass, you're not coming here, you've called too many times, we're taking away $5,000. That's not going to happen. They're going to say that's the offer, and if you don't like it, go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's basically. And just there's been a bunch of questions about what Matt talked about. So just to clarify, because we're never going to get to all these questions because we're at the top of the hour, but if it's a need-based appeal, the parent should lead the charge, because it's awkward for your child to say, oh, our income dropped, and give data on that. So parents lead the charge, but the student should always be chiming in and saying why they want to come, and not the campus is beautiful, like something specific. They talk to a professor, whatever, something emotional and specific. Flip side is a merit that you're going to appeal. The student should write the letter, how much they want to be there and why. And then, hey, I've attached a letter from my mom or my dad, or my mom and my dad, whatever. And then you can chime in from a parent standpoint. You don't have any dollars and cents stuff. You could say, I've got a younger child and you were generous, but you could say whatever you want. And we've got some templates actually at the end of the deck that you're going to get tomorrow that you can look at. But that's how I always coach it. And it tends to be pretty successful, because you got to realize these colleges, this is a big business for them, right? They want to feel, if we give this family another $5,000, this kid's going to come. Wow. This kid visited a lot, and oh, he knows a professor, or he knows about a specific class that he would take junior year in that major. This kid's serious. We give him the money, we think he's going to come, and they get the net revenue. Bottom line, that's how they're thinking about this. So if you can fit into their mold, that's going to help you be more successful. And people had some questions in there about, how do I know about home equity? It's complicated, right? We've looked at awards for years, so we can look at awards and go in, and I can back in some schools to, okay, this is what they think the EFC is because they meet 100% of need. It's not something that I can answer in the Q&A. It's our expertise. So as Matt said, it's worth it to book an hour. If what you've learned tonight, don't book an hour if your kid applied to all these state schools and you have a high EFC. Then you're going to not be happy. Book an hour to talk to us about other things, but not that. But anybody else, for what you've learned tonight, we can meet with you.
I'm sorry, Peggy. So we're getting a couple different folks, because I didn't say this. I don't think I didn't explain this, but if you're just setting up your account and you click the get started link, and we have a couple different options like free, scholar, valedictorian. You choose the valedictorian option because that gets you full access to the platform for a year, but most importantly, for what you're looking for right now, the 60-minute meeting with one of us. So you choose the valedictorian option, put in the coupon code, and then after you do that, you'll have the ability to book a meeting at your time. So
it's going to look like this. And so if you want to book a meeting, you want to pick valedictorian. And then you put in your coupon code, you get into the software, and you're good to go.
Yep.
So now you have a bit.
And something else we didn't say at the top, too, Peg, we probably should have qualified, or at least I didn't. I'm not sure if you did. We've done our best. First of all, the questions have been phenomenal, and we've answered 69 exactly right now, Peggy, but we can never get to all of them, especially when we have a great crowd like tonight. So we're doing the best we can, but obviously if you want some one-on-one time, you book an hour with us. If that's not something that you want, we have, and we put in that link, our free resources, right? We have our YouTube channel is unbelievably robust. Our Facebook group is moderated by our experts. We have live, and again, this is another one of the links in the page that we put in there. We have office hours where every other Monday, one of us and usually two of us will just be there for an open grab bag to say, hey, what are your questions? How can we answer them? So regardless of where you are, if it seems if it doesn't seem reasonable to be able to book an hour with one of us one-on-one, there's still a ton of free resources that we can hopefully help support you with.
And I'm gonna answer one other question because it caught my eye, and this might affect many of you. If the person's asking if there's two students in college at the same time, do the colleges take that into consideration? Currently, yes, they do. Depending on the type of methodology they use, they will reduce the EFC anywhere from 30 to 50%, depending on the school. But if it's a FAFSA only school, next year that's changing. So if you've been on our webinars about the FAFSA Simplification Act that's going to kick in, the mom that wrote that in, Rebecca, I just want you to hear me on that. That could change, right? Depending on the schools. And I just want you to have fair warning that you could get an award next year. I don't know anything about your situation. That's dramatically different. If you have two in school for the 23-24, and you think it's going to be the same, and all of a sudden it's a lot different. So just planting that seed for everybody, because that's going to change. And we'll do webinars about that again, because we've done them, but we'll probably do some this summer is my guess, right, Matt? We'll probably do those again.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yep. But yeah, guys, and again, because we got a bunch of questions around this, if you want the discount, you got to at least book tonight, even if you don't reserve your reservation or reserve your time of when you want your meeting or who you want to meet with, you at least got to upgrade or book it tonight, and then you guarantee you lock in that.
But don't wait too long to book it, because you want to get your appeal into the colleges so that they have time to get back to you.
Yep, exactly. 100%. And Peg, do you know this question? Somebody just booked. Where do they get the receipt? Do we email that to them, or do you know how that works? I don't know.
I don't even think we send a receipt. If you want a receipt,
it's all documented. So just write in to support@collegeaidpro.com that you'd like a receipt, and we'll get you.
Just write to support@collegeaidpro.com and just give them they'll see your email, whatever you booked it, made your account with. And we can come up with something to send you if you want a receipt. But basically, you'll be able to book the hour. So you pay and then you get your hour. But if you want a receipt for whatever purposes, then we can make that happen. We just haven't had anybody ask for that before.
Peggy, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have a good night tonight without you under my roof. I don't know. It's going to be, weird here. It's going to be weird.
I'm not eating lobster tonight like I did last night. I'll tell you that. So it's a bummer.
Soon enough.
All right, everybody. Have a great night and happy appealing.
Happy appealing.
All right. Bye-bye.